All right. So, a couple of years ago, I did an interview about the mental health support group I was running at the time with a young lady studying journalism at Manchester Uni. And all in all, it was kind of a pretty bog standard interview, to be honest, not special. You know, she was asking all the sort of generic journalism 101 questions like, when did you start the group? How many members are there? What do you hope to achieve with it? And I don't think either of us wanted to be there, to be honest. I think she was only there because her journalism professor was like, you know, go do something to do with mental health, like that's fashionable or whatever. However, to be fair, final question was actually quite a profound one. She asked, if you could give somebody struggling with depression just one piece of advice, what would it be? Now, I know that doesn't sound very profound on the face of it. In fact, I'm probably just reading the profundity into it. You know, I think based on the quality of all her other questions, I think it's safe to assume she was going for the same kind of lazy, reductionist question that some fucking bro science life coach might use as the premise to his $49 ebook. It's the same sort of question that celebrities get asked at the end of every interview. You know, like, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who wants to be a movie star or a rock star or a world-class athlete? Now, spoiler alert, it's got nothing to do with being blessed with good looks or good genetics or nepotism or landing a decent agent or even just blind luck. Follow your dreams, yeah? Just follow your dreams and don't let anybody get in your way, yeah? That's free, that. You can have that. Bonus advice. But anyway, regardless of whatever level of depth she was actually aiming for, it stumped me because I took it literally. I took it to mean that if you were forced to consider every facet of knowledge about depression that you've acquired, all the things you've read, all the theories, all the techniques, and then assign sovereignty to just one single piece of information above all others, what would it be? And I didn't know what to say. I remember sitting there trying to sort of quickly remember all these like little tidbits and facts and figures and apportion hierarchical value to them. Because, I mean, you know, this is very important, of course. You know, this interview is going to be written up in a student magazine that's going to be read by at least 3 parrots when their owners use the pages to line the base of the bird cages for them to shit all over. Anyway, I didn't come up with anything. I said, you know, I'll get back to you or whatever. Knowing full well I wouldn't, and knowing full well that she couldn't have given half a shiny shite anyway. But I couldn't let it go. I was like a dog with a bone. I remember like on the drive home, thinking about it when I got home, when I'm eating my dinner, when I got in bed. And I don't know why I latched onto it like that. I think it's because when you take it as a serious question and not just like a quick fix request, it's actually quite an important question to consider. Because when you're struggling with depression, it's so demotivating and energy draining. There's so little spare energy and willpower to allocate to remedying it that it's important to make sure that what little energy and willpower you can muster is sort of allocated wisely to maximize your returns. So picking this apart, it's like, okay, what's the criteria by which to judge whether or not advice is good advice? Well, firstly, it needs to be more than just good in the abstract, because good advice in the abstract when it comes to depression would be cheer the fuck up or stop it, stop being depressed. If you're depressed, stop being depressed is good, solid, abstract advice. It's like a maths equation. Depression minus depression equals no depression. Sorted. Advice to someone with anxiety. Stop worrying about it. Chill the fuck out. Anorexia, go and have something to eat. Done. But of course that's ridiculous. So the first criteria is it needs to be realistic, it needs to be pragmatic, it needs to be doable. So then the question becomes, what pragmatic piece of advice would I say is the best piece of advice? So there's loads of pragmatic, doable things. There's therapy, exercise, meditation, diet, sleep, socializing, list goes on. Okay, fine. So here's your list of doable things. Now all we have to do is arrange them into some sort of hierarchy of merit or superiority. But then how do we quantify merit? So then I thought a reasonable criteria would be whichever is the most multifaceted. So how many birds can it simultaneously kill with one stone? So my response to that would be hiking. And I don't just mean sort of bunging your trainers on to go play fucking hopscotch through a shitty cow field down the road from your nan's house. I mean like actually making a thing of it, like taking it on as a serious hobby. So just for starters, you know, it's free, it's easier than something like running, it's more accessible to more people, gets you up off your ass, out of the house, you know, a change of scenery, bit of fresh air out in nature, get some sunlight on your face. You know, that'll keep your circadian rhythms in check, improve your sleep, give you a bit of vitamin D. So if that all sounds a bit, you know, airy-fairy, your circadian rhythms, they rely partly on the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus, which is like a little cluster of light-sensitive cells that receive direct input from the retina, trains your body clock to keep in sync with daytime-nighttime cycles. You know, if you're depressed, you're sat inside all day with the curtains closed, you're going to fuck that up. Your sleep's going to suffer. You know, sleep is a significant predictor of developing major depression. In fact, I think it makes you about 4 times more likely to develop depression. And conversely, improved sleep correlates with improved mood. Sunlight exposure seems to go some way to explaining the phenomenon of seasonal affective disorder, or the winter blues. So you know that, like, the further away you live from the equator, the more susceptible you are to it. So for instance, in the United States, in the sunshine state of Florida, about 1% of the population experience seasonal affective disorder, whereas in Alaska, where some places get as little as 4 hours of daylight in the winter, about 9% of people experience seasonal affective disorder. Also, bright light therapy using light boxes appears to be effective in improving things like mood, energy and alertness. So, you know, bollocks to a $100 light box in your bedroom, you've got a big fuck off free one in the sky there, unless you're in Alaska, of course. So the vitamin D thing is a little more shaky. So low levels of vitamin D have been sort of observationally associated with depressive symptoms, but the actual effectiveness of vitamin D supplementation as an antidepressant is apparently inconclusive. But I don't know, it makes sense. So think of that one as like a potential bonus feature. What else? So being out in nature. So that's in line with a Japanese practice called Shinrin-yoku or Shinrin-yoku. Is that racist? Probably. Everything's fucking racist nowadays. But forest bathing, which I believe has become like an established treatment option over there. All the media were sort of harping on about it over here a couple of years ago, like forest bathing has been scientifically proven to improve your mental health. So the idea with forest bathing is that phytoncides, which are antimicrobial volatile organic compounds emitted by plants and trees, when you sort of breathe them in, help boost your immune system and lower stress hormones, which sounds good, but as usual, the media were getting a little sort of carried away with themselves. So one 2012 review of the literature says that the evidence was insufficient due to poor quality studies, and then a later 2017 review stated that their findings supported the premise that exposure to a forest environment might be beneficial, but again cited methodological design flaws. There's actually a decent little primer called Forest Bathing and Nature Therapy, a state-of-the-art review, which I'll include in the video description for anyone who's interested. But regardless, for me, I'm sort of willing to accept prima facie that proximity to nature is just inherently good for us. And 11,000 Danish people from a 2005 Danish health survey agree with me as well. Anyway, what else? So you're moving your body, you're exercising, you're burning off excess cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Low intensity exercise specifically has been shown to be especially effective in reducing circulating cortisol levels. You're burning calories, you're losing weight, you're improving your body image, your self-esteem, increase mobility, feel more agile, feel younger, helps stimulate the production of BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So major depression and suicidal behaviour are both associated with severely impaired neuronal plasticity in the brain. So literally a sort of, that's an oxymoron. But basically, impaired neuronal plasticity equates to a sort of hardwired rigidity of thinking. And one theory about BDNF as it relates to depression is that it facilitates neurogenesis, which is the creation of new neurons, which in animal studies at least has been shown to contribute to the recovery process of depression-like behaviours. From a social perspective, you know, if you join a hiking club, you're meeting new people, you're talking, socialising, laughing, joking. Often these walking clubs, after a hike, they sort of either go to a pub, they sit down, have a meal together, so you're eating good food, drinking good wine, making friends. Also, you could, just do it by yourself for a more sort of meditative practice, a bit of introspection, bit of alone time, peace and quiet, escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. You could get into the culture of it, actually really study it, like topography, learning to map read, orienteering, the history of hiking and exploration. You could read hiking magazines, research the best equipment, the most scenic or challenging hiking routes or whatever. You know, go out and buy the right sort of hiking gear, make it part of your identity, like a fashion statement. And it can give you like a sense of purpose and something to look forward to as well, which is really important with things like depression. You know, something like, you know, just like next Saturday at 6 a.m, me, John and Susie are going to meet up and walk up Kinder Scout. Or maybe something even bigger than that, like starting your own hiking club or a hiking blog, or just planning a hiking expedition to a different country for next summer. And then maybe you can tack on things like landscape photography or metal detecting or botany or whatever. So exercise, meditation, brain chemistry, physical health, self-esteem, body image, socializing, nature, good food, traveling, fresh air, scenery, a sense of purpose. Going hiking is like getting gangbanged by the entire pantheon of antidepressant gods, all of them wearing strap-ons shaped like 12-inch Prozac pills. Not to sort of overstate the effectiveness of antidepressants, but you get the picture. And it does sound like the perfect multifaceted remedy. But the problem is, advice needs to be judged on more than just its potential, particularly in a field where adherence is low. So hiking is potentially brilliant precisely because it's physical and social and purposeful in nature and sort of all the benefits that derive from that. But it's the very fact that it's primarily physical in nature that makes it unlikely that people will actually follow through with it. You know, people are notoriously bad at sticking with physical pursuits. And then when you add the fact that we're dealing with someone with depression, they're even less likely to follow through. So then it's like, okay, well, maybe it needs to be multifaceted, coupled with the likelihood of it actually being used. So then based on that criteria, my advice would be tell somebody. You know, it requires less effort, less willpower, potentially. It's cathartic. It prevents that sort of pressure cooker build-up of emotion. A problem shared is a problem halved, you know, at least from the perspective of outsourcing the amount of brain power required to come up with a solution. It facilitates human connection, you know, you feel less alone, which is, you know, this is all essentially what therapy boils down to, only it won't cost you $50 an hour and you won't sit festering on a NHS waiting list for 3 months. But then we're neglecting the fact that advice is subject to your particular circumstances and your own personal value system. So my best possible advice could quite literally be your worst possible advice, or just plain useless. Like if somebody's depressed because they're severely disabled and housebound, what sort of advice is go hiking? Or tell somebody. Like, what if your depression is due to loneliness or isolation? Or what if the only people you can talk to are untrustworthy? And then my little golden piece of advice encourages you to sort of throw caution to the wind, and now you've exposed yourself to someone and made yourself even more vulnerable by giving leverage to some twat that doesn't really care about you. So fuck it. So it's got to be doable, it's got to be multifaceted, it's got to be easy to adhere to, and it's got to fit varying circumstances and value systems. Anyway, here it is. And this might sound like a cop-out, or it might just sound like I'm trying to be meta or a smart ass or something, but it's my genuine answer. If I could give just one piece of advice to someone struggling with depression, or any other mental health issue for that matter, it would be that any advice that pretends like one piece of advice is going to be the best piece of advice shouldn't be considered anything more than just another piece of advice. And maybe even more importantly, stop seeking that kind of advice. Stop seeking the golden nugget, the big secret. And there's a lot of that shit floating about out there claiming to be just that. And the reason I say that is, without any evidence to support the chemical imbalance theory of depression, and there is none, I think one of the best ways to conceptualize depression is as a sort of paralyzing sense of hopelessness in response to the emergence of a set of problems of immeasurable complexity. Let me subject that to a rabbinical parsing, help it make sense. So any piece of advice, whether it's verbal, a blog post, a book, a video, a fucking Instagram meme, any piece of advice based on the premise that depression is reducible to a singular cause, all that sort of advice does is encourage people to neglect the complexity of the set of circumstances that gave rise to the depression in the first place. So, for example, let's say you become depressed because you lose your job. You're not only confronted with the immediate primary problem of needing a new job, you're also facing a certain amount of inevitable secondary problems that arise from the initial problem, an indefinite amount of probable tertiary problems that result from the secondary problems, and then a fucking infinite amount of potential other problems that might result from the tertiary problems, all of which you're now being forced to to try and account for and take control of. Which I've got to say sort of makes it easy to see why the comorbidity rate with depression and anxiety is between 40 and 70%. So in this example, where's the next job coming from? Who's going to pay the rent? You've got a car on finance, that's going to need to go back to the dealership. So that means doing the school run on foot now. In the car, it used to take you 10 minutes. A 10-minute drive is a 40-minute walk. So now you've got to get up earlier. Couple that with staying up late to apply for jobs. Now you're getting less sleep. We already know what that's associated with. With less money coming in, your partner has to start working overtime to make up the difference. She used to get home at 5, now she's rolling in at 8. Also, she was the one who used to cook dinner. You can't cook for shit, and your shopping budget's been cut in half. So you're feeding the kids chicken nuggets and fish fingers every night, which isn't exactly brain food. So when it comes time to do their homework, they're sluggish or giddy, so that the grades are going to start slipping. By the time your missus gets home, you've already fed the kids, it's bedtime for them, so you're not sitting down to eat as a family anymore. They're missing mummy, she barely sees them anymore, she starts to feel guilty about it. So kids are in bed, what's she going to eat? She's not in the mood for doing some Gordon Ramsay nonsense at 9 o'clock at night. She's got to be in bed for 10 to get up for 6 again in the morning to go to work. So you're both eating shitty microwave meals on your laps at 9:30 at night and then crawling into bed half an hour later, both knackered, both moody, both feeling guilty about the situation, which isn't exactly a recipe for intimacy. So your sex life suffers, start to sleep with your backs to one another. Her out of frustration and you out of shame start to feel like you're drifting apart. It doesn't help that you're basically sitting on your ass all day eating fucking Wheatos and Pop-Tarts, so you've put weight on. Maybe she doesn't find you attractive anymore. Maybe something's going on with that guy at work, because they're certainly spending a lot more time together now that she's doing all this overtime. You used to go out to the pub a couple of times a week with your mates, but that's become unaffordable, so now your social life is suffering, you feel out of the loop. And also you've got no one to talk to about all the bullshit that's going on at home. You're bottling everything up, start getting irritable, start shouting at the kids about things that didn't used to bother you. So they're thinking, why is daddy being so mean all of a sudden? When mummy comes home, she gets a hug, but they don't hug you anymore. You start to feel a bit jealous, resentful. You know, your missus is the one holding everything together while you're falling apart at the seams. It's been 6 months now. How much longer is this going to take before you find another job? Because suddenly she's saying that she doesn't know how much longer she can go on like this. Meanwhile, you're genuinely trying, pumping out resumes every day, trying to find a job, but no one's calling you back. And the few interviews you do get, you're such a nervous wreck about it because you're so desperate to get the job and prevent your family from falling apart that you sort of come across as needy and incompetent. So time after time, I'm sorry, but on this occasion, your application's been unsuccessful. And how many more of those before, you know, your wife finally fucks off and takes the kids with her, finds herself a new fella who has got a job and gets to spend more time with your kids than you do? What the fuck are you supposed to do with that situation? Positive affirmations every day in every way. I'm getting stronger and stronger. Yeah, that'll do it, you fucking dope. How about a little bit of exercise? Get them feel-good chemicals flowing. Stick a bit of music on. Don't worry about a thing. You're having a fucking laugh. How about meditation? That's the big trans-diagnostic panacea at the moment. I mean, you must have seen it. You know, every time a debt collection letter falls through your letterbox from the bailiffs threatening to come and take your shit, or the funeral expenses for your daughter who's just died, or the treatment costs for the life-threatening condition you've recently been diagnosed with. There's 4 payment options at the bottom of the letter there. There's cash, credit card, direct debit, and then sitting on your ass with your legs crossed going, hum. And then when it doesn't make you feel any better, you feel defective because, hang on a minute, Sally Fishlips, who does makeup tutorials on YouTube when she suddenly turns into a expert on psychiatry once a year during Mental Health Awareness Week, she told me this was the secret to overcoming depression. If it worked for Sally Fishlips, what the fuck's wrong with me? And that butterfly effect of one major upset sort of cascading out into your life like an atom bomb full of cow shit, that applies to any situation, whether it's like a job loss or a breakup, death of a relative, even existential shit like a midlife crisis, or just, you know, one day waking up and realising that your life's turned into a monotonous, empty, purposeless shit show. And if you're one of those people that doesn't even know why you feel depressed in the first place, because at first glance everything around you appears to be going well, that's arguably an even more complex problem, because that's a tangled knot with no loose end sticking out. That's doing a fucking Rubik's Cube with a blindfold on. Good luck figuring that shit out. Again, maybe all you need is a lovely chamomile tea, or a $49 healing energy crystal from some silly white bitch in a Moon and Stars cape who's changed the name from Stacey Higginbottom to Vishnu the Leopard Princess. Free shipping on all orders over $99. Fuck me. But here's the thing, I'm not even saying that those things don't work. Like even Vishnu from Stoke-on-Trent telling you to rub your vagina lips with a little bit of obsidian to cleanse your root chakra. Even that probably has some sort of placebo effect for those dozy fuckers that are into all that sort of thing. What I am saying is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, diversify your fucked in the head portfolio. Because just like the stock market, you put all your savings on one stock and it fails and it can destroy you. And with something like depression, you know, you invest all your hope, often the last bit of hope you actually possess, into one solution and it fails you. That can destroy you as well. You know, everybody's got a final straw. I sometimes wonder how many people's final straw was the result of being set up for a fall by somebody selling them a lie. So yeah, no one piece of advice is a panacea, except maybe this one, which would be ironic or just megalomaniacal on my part. See you later.